Hello and welcome. Finally, the day has dawned for a game that will surely keep the nation on the edge of its seat all afternoon, because this is crunch time for the Republic of Ireland's World Cup ambitions. Victory against Holland this afternoon will, at worst, guarantee a playoff place against Asian opposition in our bid to qualify for Japan and Korea. What's required is a performance from Mick McCarthy's side above and beyond what has already been an impressive progression through World Cup Group 2.
You're listening to This Week Back in the Day, and on this episode we're going to be talking about the Irish beat the Dutch on the 1st of September 2001. God, it's that long ago. David Dunn here, joined by Nick Menzies. And before we get started, just want to remind you guys that you can join us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and also you can give us a cheeky little subscribe over on our YouTube channel. Do it now, or we're not doing the episode. Just joking. Just messing with you. This is our first episode back in a while, and I really cannot wait to get into this. This one is going to be very, very clip heavy, by the way. We've gone into the Lansdowne Road archives, and can't wait to get into it. Let's do it. Nick, you practically begged me, didn't you? I think you bumped Martin off to do this one. You wanted this one all to yourself. This is definitely your right up your street, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I'm the super sub. You know, the Portuguese centre forward for the English attacking midfielder. I think that's all it is to cover a game about the Dutch. And how fitting, Dave, that we're covering this a couple of weeks before we played the Dutch again. But yeah, look, very fond memories from this one. I was only a babby. I can't remember if I was 9 or 10. No, I would have been 9. Actually, I would have been 9. 2. I thought it was 10 for some reason. So I was 9.
Nick was 2.
And 2. I wish. That'll make me. What would that make me? 24.
It'd make it 2.
Yeah, I wish. But look, no, really fond memories from this. One of my favorite games of all time. I was only saying to you off air, Dave, like there was bits that I just forgot. You know, because when you're a kid watching these games, there's so many things you just don't take any notice of, like red cards. Geez, this is going to sound stupid, but I think I was about 15 before I realized that you know, when you get a red card, you're actually at a massive disadvantage. I just thought it was a normal thing, but yeah, you'd forget about the Gary Kelly red card.
Oh,
not to give anything away.
No, spoiler alert there. Yeah, this one, it's kind of funny because everyone thinks back to this, what a great performance by the Irish. No, it really wasn't. We were absolutely dreadful this day. Great win, brilliant win, fantastic team spirit to beat that Dutch team with 10 men. Phenomenal. 10 men for about 20 odd minutes. Yeah. Although, to be fair, Holland should have been about 4-0 up at that stage.
It was a very stressful watch. A very, very stressful watch. And I think we can thank that very dodgy Lansdowne Road pitch.
How dare you? It was like a carpet that you get delivered to your door by. Never mind. Anyway, so basically we're going to be coming at this from two very different experiences. Nick stayed at home because he was 2. And I went to U2. In fact, I was at Slane Castle watching this with 80,000 other Irish fans. And I am happy. I've probably mentioned it a few times on the podcast, but I'm happy to share that story again. What a concert. What a night. It was just phenomenal. So just before we get into that, actually, let's talk about the campaign. This was, of course, for the World Cup 2002 in Korea and Japan, South Korea and Japan. At this stage, Ireland were unbeaten, sitting on top of Group 2 after drawing with Portugal home and away and surrendering a 2-0 lead against the Dutch in Amsterdam. That was the previous year. That was a 2-2 draw. Probably one of the best 60 minutes I've actually seen Ireland play. Do you remember that one? Do you remember that one in Amsterdam? Just sort of playing the Dutch off the park for a good 60 minutes?
Yeah, well, I don't remember the details of the game. I remember watching the game, but I mean, Jesus, I was 8 at this day. So I remember watching it, but I don't remember paying attention, I suppose. Like my attention span was probably a lot worse than it is now as a kid. But when you're that age, though, even though I was an Ireland fan, you just expect your team to win every single game, don't you? I mean, I grew up supporting United, and they'd won the treble and they'd won X amount of Premier Leagues last day. So you just expect your teams to win. So when Ireland were 2-0 up, I don't think I was even phased, where if I was a 31-year-old man like I am now, I'd probably be having an outer body experience. But yeah, I mean, looking back at that campaign and looking at the Dutch and the kind of lower ebb that they were at, they were under Louis van Gaal. which people forget, who was only manager recently enough. He's done a couple of stints, but like they struggled in that campaign. They really did struggle, even against the likes of Estonia. They struggled. They found that campaign very, very difficult, and they're playing us at a very, very good time. We Roy Keane at the height of his powers. We had a very, very good squad. We're always bemoaning how good that squad was when we compare them to today and even recent years. So yeah, that Dutch team were certainly there for the taking, but still full of superstars and an outrageous squad.
I remember that one. I remember the one in Amsterdam. We were brothers in the States at the time, actually. It was September 2000, and they obviously had just had Euro 2000 there, and I think they went out in the semi-finals to Italy on a penalty shootout. And what is his name? Frank Rijkaard was the manager, wasn't he? Gus Hiddink was the manager in '98. That team that, for me, were robbed in the semi-finals against Brazil and France. And then, of course, that was the first joint Euros with Belgium and the Dutch, the Lowlands. It was a fantastic tournament, and I was rooting for Holland to win that one, but they didn't. And yeah, it was a bit of a new. I think Bergkamp had retired at this stage. Still a lot of quality players, but I think with Van Gaal, it just never suited him. It just didn't suit him international management. I think he's manager again, isn't he?
Ronald Koeman is, isn't he?
But it was Van Gaal. I think Van Gaal was the manager like 20.
Oh yeah. No, he was recently. He was, he's sick, isn't he? Like, he's not well at the moment. But
yeah, bless him. Hopefully he's
sadly, but no, it's Ronald Koeman.
Ronald Koeman at the moment, but I think he was in 2018, because it's always what's the guy that was at Rangers?
Dick Advocaat.
Hiddink, Van Gaal, and
Rijkaard.
Obviously Rijkaard. I think they're the only ones that they've really had in the last few years. I know they've had one or two.
Yeah, this is Koeman's second stint, isn't it?
Was
Koeman still playing? But he wasn't playing for Holland, but was he still playing professional football back then, 2001?
Oh,
no, probably not. Probably just retired.
No, he was long gone, wasn't he? He was gone.
They Marco van Basten at one stage as well, didn't they?
He retired in '94.
No, but they as a manager, like
as a manager, yep.
Now not that long, maybe 15 years ago.
He was the guy that in the World Cup final in 2010, and he toughened them up.
Oh, Van, strange name. He managed Australia at some stage. Well, Van Weird begins with a W.
Yeah, and he toughened them up like they were a dirty team.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're digressing. We're going through. This is supposed to be an Irish podcast. We're going through the history of Holland at the moment. But yeah, I just remember that game in Amsterdam, 2-2. We were 2-0 up. McAteer got an absolute screamer. Lovely goal. First goal, Robbie Keane. Beautiful football with Stephen Carr. And lovely cross in, Robbie Keane header. And we were good for it as well. And then we just sort of fell apart. A lot of people will blame that on the whole cheese sandwiches that Roy Keane was giving out about in his book. You remember that when he was like, "Oh, I'm, we're eating cheese sandwiches." You think Van Heidung or Kluivert, they're all eating cheese sandwiches because Roy had come down late from the buffet, and the food was all gone. It was like,
I remember, did I read something where he was looking for cereal and bits and pieces like that? And I remember thinking, cereal isn't, it's probably not the most nutritious athletics. Now, maybe back in 2000 it was, but yeah, sports science has progressed, hasn't it? Probably wasn't.
Cereal's
probably wasn't up there. Yeah.
But anyway, right, let's get on with it. The campaign so far. Well, we did the Portugal and the Dutch bit, but let's get to the group table. Ireland were actually sitting on top of Group 2 with 18 points from 8 games. Portugal had played 7 with 15 points, but he had a better goal difference. And the Dutch were third with 7 games and only 14 points. I think it's safe to say, though, at this point, Ireland had matured under Mick, hadn't they? You look back at France 98, complete disaster. Weird formations, 5 at the back, didn't work. Rows with Andy Townsend, rows with John Aldridge, rows with Paul McGrath, all falling out with all the senior players, rows with Roy Keane. Only kind of got going towards the back end of that when we were robbed in Brussels. And then you look at Euro 2000, where we were brilliant at home. We won all the games at home, actually, but then we lost to a stupid mistake from Steve Staunton in Belgrade in 98. and then a last literally 94th minute winner from Davor Šuker to keep Croatia in it when we were 0-0. I don't know where they got the 5 minutes from. I do not know where the referee got the 5 minutes for that game, just saying. And then, of course, the last minute equaliser in Skopje, which actually cost us automatic qualification. So there was a constant progression under Mick, which, what people forget. But I think with this campaign, we just seem to have a bit more about us. Like, we were undefeated at this point, and even away from home. That's where we let ourselves down in the last campaign. But we just seem to we just got better and better and better under Mick, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a learning curve for Mick, young manager, in the mid-90s, kind of fresh from managing Millwall. Yeah, and I always think they looked at the comparison with Jack Charlton. He was Jack Charlton's representative on the pitch, as a player. Two Yorkshiremen, two very similar philosophies. They spent a lot of time together, didn't they? Kind of in their younger days. Mm-hmm. Mick as a young player, and I suppose Jack as the young manager. So it was always going to be a big learning curve. He introduced so many young players, and this campaign was really the coming of age. It was kind of that combination of the lads who had a lot of success in the 90s under Brian Kerr, and also a lot of the lads that Mick had blooded when they were teenagers. Young, even the likes of Ian Hart, had an excellent campaign. Robbie Keane wasn't even a excuse me, he was a starter in this game now, but he didn't start every single game in that campaign. Damien Duff as well. Like, they were kind of your impact subs. They were kind of in and out of the teams. Kevin Kilban's another example of a player who would have come in quite young for Mick. So it was a coming of age, this campaign, and Mick, after all the experimentation, we mentioned them playing kind of the 5/3 at the back, Roy Keane playing as a centre half, crazy stuff like that. He'd finally settled on a 4-4-2, and it was a very, very fluid system, very, very fluid system. And any younger listeners, do look back at clips, loads of clips of Ireland under Mick McCarthy, kind of pre-2002. I'm not talking about the 2019 style or version of Mick,
no.
But, very, very, very direct, very, very fluid, a very, very simplistic style of play. And it was super effective. And I tell you what, we struggled against the Dutch in that game, but at the end of the day, it was the directness and the simplicity that got us that goal.
And I think as well, it makes something you developed, something the current manager could do with, is in-game management. Yeah. Well, we're going to get to the lineups. Here's a clip. It's about a minute, so bear with us. And it's Mick and the Louis van Gaal talking about their lineups.
Yes, I don't think there's too many surprises. Shane goals and Gary Kelly, because Ian Hart passed his. He didn't have a fitness test. He's proved to be fit. So Gary Kelly will play at right back, and the ends there. Steve Staunton, Richard Dunn, Jason Mack on the right, Roy and Matty Holland, Kevin Kilban, and up front maybe the only one that I know people will look at and say, well, should he have done this, should he have done that? Because it's always questioned was Damien Duff and Robbie Keane. But the two lads were, I thought, superb against Croatia. And I just think the movement and the pace is what we need in this game. And
the line-up of the Netherlands, Van der Sar in the goal. Defense, Melchiot, Stam, Hofland and Numan. Midfield, Van Bommel, Cocu, Kluivert. And forwards, strikers are Senden, Van Nistelrooy and Overmars.
So you're three up front?
Always three up front. It's not a surprise for McCarthy. I have a good feeling about this match.
Yeah, so do we, Louis.
Very youthful looking Louis van Gaal.
Yeah, very arrogant. And very, arrogant. Yeah, he was very arrogant there, wasn't he? No surprise for McCarthy. And yes, I have a good feeling about this game. Bless him. He doesn't know, does he? He doesn't know. Some lineup there, obviously. Yeah.
Outrageous that Dutch team. It's and you look at teams stacked with talent. You look at even the Belgian team in recent years, in the last 10 years, and they massively underachieved. And you probably say the same about that Dutch team. I mean, just stacked with talent, absolutely stacked with talent. They should have won Euro 2000.
Yeah,
they should have won Euro 2000, and you would have seen them going to the World Cup. No bother, but just whatever way it was, they very, very top heavy team, huge amount of quality. But for whatever reason, I don't know if it was Van Gaal or issues in the camp or what it was, but they, for all the quality, there just wasn't a happy balance.
They've always had issues, though. That Dutch team had issues back then. Of course, there is no Edgar Davids in that side. He was banned in July, actually, for 4 months after being accused of taking androlone. He actually failed 2 drug tests, one in April and the 2nd of May. He's always denied the charge, Edgar Davids. But even that team didn't have Edgar Davids. He was in the stand, actually, wasn't he? He was sitting there with his glasses on. He had that issue with his eyes, and it was a mild glaucoma, was it, or something?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, and he had the special goggles during the games. For anyone that remembers Edgar Davids.
Oh yeah, it's a hell of a player. But that was the thing, though. Dutch teams always have issues. They had issues in Euro '96, where I think the black players wouldn't sit with the white players, and they've always had problems in the camp. I don't know why. Such a peaceful nation, but they're always having issues. Anyway, this is what the panel. This is a preview from the panel, the RTE panel. It's funny enough, when I watched this game live, I didn't watch it on RTE. I had to watch it on Sky. And it was only the second half, but we'll get to that in a bit.
Are you unpatriotic, Dave?
I had no choice. I was
not that I watch RTE now, but that was the height of RTE, the height of the RTE punditry and
I know,
and coverage of the games.
Well, that's what you get. When you put a U2 gig on at the same time, completely unannounced. But here is the panel talking about the teams.
First instance to see that Robbie Keane is playing. I think he's a match winner. I think he's an outstanding player, and he's done it before here against good sides. I think we'll miss Mark Kinsella badly. Damien Duff and Robbie Keane is an acceptable alternative to Niall Quinn, from my point of view. I wish Kinsella was here, and I wish Kenny Cunningham was playing in the centre of defence. But I think it's a team that, if their attitude is right and they know what to do, they can do enough to get the result we need.
Yeah. Has he made the best use, John, of the resources available to him? Specifically in relation to 2 up-front players?
Well, my preference, I would have gone for Quinn. Quinn actually today, Bill, because I think the way the game will go, I think Quinn gives them a way out if they don't have a great deal of possession of the ball, which I doubt that we will have. I think Holland will have greater possession of the ball.
Looking at the team, what has the team done to you? Has it made the feeling worse or better?
No, well, actually coming to the game and feeling the atmosphere, sensing the atmosphere, I think there is a possibility that we can get something from the game. And I think Mick has handled...
So you've changed your mind a bit?
No, I haven't changed my mind, but I think Mick has handled this week particularly well. He's handled the pressure particularly well, and he's picked a team that he believes in. I'm pessimistic. I'm downright scared, Bill, because of what they possess.
Yeah.
The ammunition that they possess, offensively, I think will be too much for us on the day.
Lee Brady's scared. I mean, to be fair, good reason. You touched, there's always a little piece, a little nugget of information you like to break out, don't you, every few months, about why Mick went with Duff and Keane up front. Because obviously, Dunphy, Quinn's out of this game, and Dunphy's, Duff's an adequate replacement for Niall Quinn.
Yeah, and that ended up being a very successful partnership, Robbie Keane and Damien Duff, kind of going forward. So Jaap Stam brought a book out just before that game. I think it was in the August of 2001. I believe it was called Head to Head. I'll have to look that up, but I believe it was called Head to Head. And a lot of it was about the treble win with United. But Mick McCarthy had read the book, and in the book, Jaap Stam had kind of mentioned, as a centre half back in the day, any younger listeners again, you would have had your little and large. So you would have had your big, bulky or tall centre forward, and you would have had maybe a smaller runner in behind. So you would have even look at England, you would have had Emile Heskey and Michael Owen. So Emile Heskey, the big bruiser, Michael Owen, the quick man, kind of running behind, and then you would have had the likes of Robbie Keane with Niall Quinn for Ireland, and there were loads of different teams, loads of different examples. But he said he much preferred playing against a little and a large than playing against a little and a little, because he said as a robust centre half that loves playing in the air, loves the aerial battle, even against a big player like Niall Quinn. He said it can be very, very hard to play on the ground against a quick centre forward, the likes of Robbie Keane. Damien Duff was a winger, But again, imagine Damien Duff running at you as a 6'3" centre half. I mean, Stam was relatively mobile, but not the most mobile of centre halves. So McCarthy took a bit of inspiration from this and took a bit of a hint from Stam. And he said, well, I'm coming up against this fantastic player. And he's basically said in his book, doesn't like playing against two smaller strikers. So he went with Keane, and he said he'd bring Duff in. And also the balance of having Duff as a left footer. He thought Duff would be able to cut in either side and cover either wings and play that kind of free role. So I thought it was a bit of a masterstroke from Mick. Looking back at the time, I would have taken, as a kid, like I would have taken absolutely no notice. I would have just looked at lineups and thought nothing of it. But, you know, looking back, a bit of a masterstroke and boxing clever based on what Sam had said.
Well, yeah, but it didn't work. Like, it didn't actually work though in the game when you look back at it, because we'll get into that in a moment. I understand where he's coming from, but one of my criticisms of Mick would be he tries to be too clever sometimes. You know, when he had the Roy Keane as centre half against Iceland in '96 and the 5 at the back instead of just 4-4-2 and this as well, he just tries to be too clever sometimes, and for me, I don't think it worked. They did all right against the lesser teams, but for me, Duff as a left winger, he just always seemed to look after his mates, didn't he? With David Connolly with Kevin Kilbane, he'd always have him playing as a left winger, and Kevin Kilbane, and Duff around that time for me. But that's just my thing. But
it was a whole loyalty factor with Mick, and
we've touched on that
before, yeah.
He demanded loyalty, and he got it back, to be fair. And in a weird way, it's an oxymoron because in this game...
Even now he's getting it back. Even now he's getting it back, Dave, because when he was, I suppose when his contract expired a little bit early to make way for Stephen Kenny, a lot of his ex-players from that era were coming out in support of him. And Mick went away silently. He didn't kick up much of a fuss, but we've seen so many players... ex-players and Mick, I suppose, critical of Stephen Kenny, and you wonder if that is down to that loyalty.
Oh, 100%. Ian Hart, Jason McAteer, especially McAteer, and we will get to that here. He said, the players won't play for Stephen Kenny. They won't respect him because he didn't respect Brian Kerr, which is nonsense. I mean, he didn't respect Brian Kerr, but the players did respect Stephen Kenny. Now, we know that's taken a whole life of its own, but, they did play for him. They did, when he came in. So, yeah, it's just a lot of loyalty there. Mick didn't have to say anything. He just kind of sat there silently going, oh, well, it's not me. Anyway, right, we'll get on with it. So I remember, so you obviously watched it at home. Now, as I said earlier on, I was at Slane. And the story is that with Slane Castle, you can only have one concert a year. And there was one on the 25th of August. And I remember we went up to buy the tickets for it. And it was sold out in seconds. There used to be a HMV on Grafton Street. And there used to be Ticketmaster in that HMV. But that Ticketmaster got smashed up by very angry U2 fans. My brother had nothing to do with it, by the way. He went up to get tickets. And I was on the phone line with his credit card details. And what happened was that the internet had just come out. And a lot of American fans and foreign fans had T1 modems, which is sort of like just on the broadband. I'm not a technical expert. And they were the little 56K modems. And we got, it just didn't have a chance. So everyone was very upset about that. And they were like, well, there's not a lot we can do because by law, we can only have one concert. But secretly and by stealth, they announced one a week later in Slane Castle on the 1st of September. It just happened to be on this day. And my brother got tickets for the first one. I didn't. But he also got me a ticket for this one. And I remember he moved down to Waterford that day. And he gave his ticket up to one of his very, very best mates. And I remember actually traveling to Slane. I had no sleep. Because I was too excited. And I got picked up, and his parents' house was in Louth, County Louth, I think. I don't know where I was. And I remember on the way up, the two lads weren't football fans in the slightest. And I remember just kept building it up. Euro 88. USA 94, Euro 96, lads. We owe them. We owe them.
They were our bogey team. They were really our bogey team, the Dutch.
Really were. We've beaten them in 90.
And they're probably about to be again.
Well, yeah, spoiler alert. It's going to be a cricket score, probably.
Who is in our bogey team at the moment?
Yeah, Gibraltar, Malta. But yeah, and I was just saying, like, we beat them in 1994 in a pre-World Cup friendly, but like, they knocked us out of everything. And by the time the match had kicked off, like, they were pumped. They were really pumped. I was going at them and going at them and going at them. And it was funny because they weren't going to play the game. I think Bono said they weren't going to do it because it was disrespectful. But they were like, hold on a second, you've put this thing on the last minute. You knew there was a match on. The fixture was announced months ago, so almost 2 years ago. So put it on. And what they did was there was a compromise. They showed highlights of the first half, and then they showed the second half live with Sky. And remember, they were setting up the old Sky dish, the one that Robbie Williams said looked like Sophie Ellis-Bextor's face. Said she had a face like a Sky dish when she refused to go on tour with him. And I remember they were setting it up, like, here we go. And he showed the highlights. No, we had phones, no internet on the phones in those days. Well, none worth looking at. And I didn't know the score. We were sort of getting updates around us, and we heard it was 0-0. And I remember they showed the highlights of the first half, and sweet Jesus. Do you remember the miss by Kluivert, where he's 1-on-1 with the goalkeeper? He hits it wide. It was just dreadful, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's and it's just, as I said, it bobbled up a little bit, didn't it? Like, I think the pitch might have had a bit of a role in that miss, but I mean, they were absolutely all over us. And as we said, the quality of the strikers, Van Nistelrooy, Kluivert, like, outrageous players. And we should have been about 3-0 down after about 10 minutes, but Steve Staunton was very lethargic looking, wasn't he, in that game? Very, very lethargic. And dreadful. Was it Brady said he wanted Cunningham playing, or Dunphy wanted Kenny Cunningham playing? Yeah, and
best centre half of the time.
Yeah, like Cunningham, like with McCarthy, it's. I always felt it was maybe a loyalty to Stan, the fact that he offers something off set pieces, the fact that he was a left footer as a centre half, so maybe offer a little bit of comfort if we were going to play it out from the back. But with Kenny, he was so mobile. He was an absolute athlete. He still is, an absolute beast. But, an absolute athlete. Very, very good in the ball as well. And Stan, even though he gone from left back to midfield, back to centre half, he could be sloppy at times. He could be sloppy at times. He could be a little bit of a liability, kind of on the ball. And, that whole George Hamilton, oh no, It was a scary moment. It was a scary moment, and at that stage, it felt like the Dutch were cooking.
Absolutely. I mean, we'll get to halftime. We're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but we'll get to halftime. And of course, so the only good thing for the Irish in that first half was Roy Keane's challenge, wasn't it? The first couple of seconds on Mark Overmars.
Let's look at Keane for a second. He certainly set his stall out, as I say, in the Classics very early on, didn't he?
Just in the first minute of the game, he did exactly what we needed to do with John and Liam. And I said beforehand, let them know you're there, test their attitude. And there's a ball played in here, and this is in the first minute. And if you watch him here, whack! Now, you're welcome to Lansdowne Road. If you're going to win today, you're going to have to ride a lot of that kind of stuff. And the bonus was he didn't get booked for it. He only gave it's just a message.
You got a warning, but not a booking.
Yeah, but the guy who got the message got the message.
He got the bigger warning.
He got a bigger warning.
Football, let them know you're playing.
Yeah. Well, they certainly knew he was playing, didn't they?
We certainly knew the Dutch were playing as well in that. So we somehow got to half-time at 0-0, as we were talking about there, and very, very, very lucky. Totally rode the luck, but a fantastic challenge there from Roy Keane on Mark Overmars. Sort of took him out. Poor Mark. No one retired early. He used to always get kicked up in the air, didn't he?
Iconic one, that, isn't it? Like, absolutely unbelievable. And it's people talk about the Jason McAteer, but that's one of the images that keeps popping up when we talk about this game and when people remember this game. And this was Roy Keane at the peak of his powers. Like, it really, really was. Roy Keane was perhaps the best midfielder in the world at the time. You look at Zinedine Zidane, players like that, but Zidane didn't offer that, did he?
No.
He didn't offer that to his game, or there were very few players that did at the time. It was unbelievable. And Overmars was the top player at the time too. Very, very good player.
Oh, he was absolutely. He was at Arsenal, Ajax, Arsenal, and then he went to Barcelona, and then he retired early. Bad move. Anyway, so just when we thought it couldn't get any worse for the Irish, this happened.
Overmars, tripped by Gary Kelly. He could get sent off if he's not good. I think he's going.
He's gone.
Oh. George, it was a stupid tackle. He doesn't have to commit himself. I mean, he did it in getting booked in the first half, and there's no need for him. I mean, Overmars is close enough to the halfway line. He's got his back to goal. He's got to try and get it under control. And Gary Kelly just threw himself in.
That's terrible. That is terrible.
That is poor.
He's had a bad game, and he's now put Ireland under terrible pressure.
Yet again, no surprise why Mark Overmars retired early.
I tell you what, Dave, back in the day when you could actually say a player had a bad game.
Yeah, you'd probably be done for bullying now.
Yeah,
but
like as I mentioned earlier, like as a kid, you don't see the relevance of red. Like I was a young enough kid, you don't see the relevance of red cards. You're like, oh, like it happens, players get red cards. But as an adult, looking back at it and watching the game back, the few times I've had in recent years, it's actually stressful even now, because you're like, Jesus, this is our golden opportunity to get back to a World Cup finals, and is this the moment that really fucks things up? Like as I said, as a kid, I didn't even cross my mind, but as an adult, I'm like, oh my god, it's we've had so many of these moments since 2002, so it just shows how much we rode our luck. And Gary Kelly was a top player at the time, unbelievable player. Like, he a couple of years from, or no, it was that year, wasn't it? The Leeds got to the Champions League semi, so he's just fresh from that, or was it the previous year? It's gone out of my mind anyway. But a top player, and kind of played off the park before the red card. But look, it puts into context just how big this victory was after that moment.
Well, yeah, I mean, I remember at the time thinking, oh no, because we were dreadful. They were battering us. We never settled, and I thought,
no momentum. There was absolutely no momentum.
No. And I just thought, here we go. And then, of course, this particular moment didn't settle the nerves either.
That shouldn't be any trouble, though, to the defence. Oh, no! And penalty, is it? No, it's not. That's unbelievable. That is unbelievable.
It can't be. Well, it started off with a messing about at the back. I mean, I don't know, we seem to think we're Brazil all of a sudden, and we can start strolling around the back four. And I mean, it's the wrong thing to do. Steve Stone is just trying to head it back, not knowing Shay Given's come out. I don't think Shay Given is deliberately trying to impede Van Nistelrooy. He's committed himself, can't get out of the way. Maybe another referee might have given it. I think possibly we're fortunate.
Shambles. Shambles.
Some mess, just comedy of errors. Well, how is that not a penalty, Dave?
Oh, it was
and a red card for Shay Given.
Stonewaller. I mean, they're saying he's not Given knew what he was doing, but Steve Staunton Given, that was one of the criticisms of Given, wasn't it, as a goalkeeper? I'm not blaming him on that, but it was his commanding of the box. They felt he didn't come out and scream enough at his players. Don't get me wrong, I think Shay Given's the greatest goalkeeper to ever play for Ireland, leagues ahead of Packy Bonner. But there, Stan, I don't know how that happens. Like, Stan's looking at Given. He's actually looking at him. But so where are you heading it?
That's a defender. That's a left fullback who should not be playing centre half. Simple as that.
Oh, it doesn't.
That's
work.
all it is. And as experienced as, like, what age was Stan then? 32, 33. Like, experienced as he was not a centre half. He was not a centre half, and he, when you lack that bit of experience in a position, you're going to make rash decisions. You're going to do silly things. You're not going to do, as a fullback, your bread and butter is kind of, clear the ball, cover your angles, that kind of thing. But as a centre half that isn't used to playing centre half, your instinct is probably, let's head it back to the goalkeeper when there's a man tracking on him, where a regular centre half would know to kind of look over his shoulder. Like, he's not looking, Staunton.
Well, no, because you play in channels, don't you, when you're a wing back, or when you're a left, because he was a left back then a left winger in the mid-90s for Jack. And you play in channels. Where when you play in the centre, you play in pools, don't you? You've got action areas all around you where you're hugging a touchline if you're a winger, so you are playing a channel, and you've got the safety net of hitting it out to putting it into touch, so to speak. But when you see a player that plays on the wing try to play in the centre, it very rarely works out, especially in the long term of that person's career, and or the long end of that person's career. And Stan was just an accident waiting to happen. He was dreadful as a centre half. Absolutely dreadful. So just when you thought, wow, how are we going to get anything out of this game? This happens.
Now Roy Keane, you can always depend on him. Duff in close attendance. Keane is fouled. Duff helping it on towards Finnan. Finnan facing Cuckoo. And a little cross in there, and it's come through here. McAteer!
Phenomenal. Now, Gary Kelly was sent off in the 57th minute, and I probably should have said this actually, and that should be simple was like 3 minutes later. Now, Robbie Keane was taken off and sacrificed for Steve Finnan. And this is what I'm talking about when it comes to Mick McCarthy's game management. He took off Robbie Keane, who wasn't really getting much of the ball anyway because, you know, we were dreadful. And Finnan comes on, sets up the goal. Actually, that turn and the fact that he turns onto his left foot and he still crosses it over beautifully. The fact that it's a bit of a weaker cross than you normally get with Finnan because he's obviously right-footed. It just fooled everybody. Roy Keane cleared out by Yapstam. Put his hands up and referee plays it on the German ref. And what a finish. I mean, completely... He just fooled everybody, McAteer. Nobody covering him, just him one-on-one. And I'll never forget watching his lane. I can still see it now. I was looking at it sort of at an angle. And when the ball went in, oh my God, man. I'm still getting goosebumps thinking about 80,000 Irish fans. I wish I had it on video. That's the one time when I wish I had a video camera just to get the whole thing. It was incredible. Everyone went absolutely mental.
So many layers to the goal, and it's really, really reflected with the commentary, isn't it? I mean, Roy Keane, you know, driving forward. Typical Roy Keane. I mean, you know, I keep referring to younger listeners, but Roy Keane just had that ability, even his later years, just to drive, you know, just to relieve the pressure and drive into the opposition half. And then Steve Finnan, hugely underrated player, I think, you know, for Ireland, and he was extremely two-footed. Like he could play he was a right back primarily. He played a lot in midfield for Ireland during his time playing for Ireland. He played at left back. I remember him with Liverpool, and he used to do that as well. He cut onto his left and he whip balls in with his left. Like he was a very, very handy centre half, or right fullback to have. But you know, an excellent ball. And then Jason McAteer, who was a free agent at the time, wasn't he?
Well, he hadn't played for Blackburn for 5 months at that stage.
Yeah.
But he was still at Blackburn, but Souness was trying to get rid of him.
They were trying to get rid, weren't they? They were trying to get rid and just popping up. And it's an excellent finish. You know, that's not an easy one to hit on the half volley. But it's such a weird one, like the and I know I keep referring to the Lansdowne Road pitch, but even the bounce in it, like there's just no give. There's just no give in the pitch. Like imagine a modern day, imagine the Lansdowne Road now, like that ball is probably slipping and sliding all over the place. But it's like kicking the ball around the park with your mates. Like there was just no give in the bounce, but it popped up lovely for him, and not an easy one. You know, I think people forget that one as well. Like half volley and, you know, cutting in from his weaker side. And
he said he was too lazy, wasn't he? I was just too lazy to move on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we ended up in the right place at the right time.
It was phenomenal. Of course, then we had to defend for lives for the final 20 minutes. Staunton and Dunn, as we said, just weren't at it. The Dutch had Kluivert, Nistelrooy, Hasselbank, and Van Hooijdonk up front later in the game, which is always funny because what's the point in having 4 strikers on when you can't get any balls up to the like? You need more creative players, which you would get now. All back then it wasn't. It was like, oh yeah, put the strikers on. Yeah, but it makes no difference because no one's feeding them. But anyway, so somehow we held on for an amazing. I mean, it was the longest 20 minutes of my life. I never forget just praying, just please blow the final whistle. And then here it came.
Holland's last hurrah. Van Bronckhorst. Richard Dunaway. The final whistle sounds at Lansdowne Road. It has to be one of the most courageous, the most brave, the most committed, and ultimately the most effective of Irish performances that we've ever seen. And Mick McCarthy has taken his team, surely, all the way to Korea, and Holland are as good as out.
And Holland were as good as out, as George rightly says. We're just going to get a bit of, we're going to get McAteer reaction here.
How does that feel?
Sweet, as they say. You know, I've been in the Ireland squad for a few years now, and you know, the World Cup was the highlight of my career. It was an absolutely fantastic time, and you know, I come on the back end of John Aldridge and Andy Townsend and Cass and them, and you know, I had an absolutely fantastic time, and I never thought it'd ever be the same when they all left. And then Mick come in, and you know, to me, he's been he's been more than a football manager. He's been a close friend, and he's always been there for me, and he's always given me the respect that that he thinks I deserve.
And here's what Mick thought.
Mick McCarthy, congratulations. That must feel pretty amazing.
Justified my faith in my players and the team, and I think they're superb. They really are great bunch.
Is this your greatest moment as Irish manager, would you feel?
I'll let all the scribes in the morning describe what it is for me. It's another game, and we're unbeaten, and the players have been fantastic, and I'm just so proud of them, really.
Can you sum it up in words, the level of the performance, particularly after Gary Kelly got sent off?
I felt so sorry for him. He's going to tackle from behind. I think somebody asked me what I thought was a ridiculous question, what I'd learnt after the Portuguese game, and I answered it by saying I learnt that we can defend, and we're a bit of a motley crew, and we can scrap and fight, but we can play. And I think in answering that the way I did, and it was a bit of a sarcastic answer, I think that showed it out there today. 10 men, beat the Dutch, technically wonderful, fantastic coach, resulted in battering balls into our box to try and break us down, and I think the character of the team was just fantastic.
Jason McAteer's goal, what do you remember about it?
Well, let me tell you, everybody watch him, because if he can't get a football club, I'll show my backside in Burton's window, because he was magnificent today. He's covered every blade of grass. He's not playing for anybody. But somebody must see that. I thought it was fantastic, and his goal again. He got one in Amsterdam. He's got one today. I love the kid, and I hope that performance will get him back playing football, because it's important that he's playing for me.
Backside in Burton's window if he doesn't get a club. Good old Mick there, but yeah, you can kind of see there that you can see it now. He feels vindicated, doesn't he? He said justified, but I think the word he's up for is vindicated, because this was an accumulation. Now, we'd already known at this stage that we were going to be playing an Asian team. I was kind of taking as a given that we'll beat whoever, which would obviously turn out to be Iran, and that wasn't as easy as it probably should have been. But yeah, you can see it there, can't you? Like, he's just like, yeah, have a bit of that, son. It's like, they can write whatever they want about me in the morning. I don't care.
He seems a bit gobsmacked, doesn't he? Like, he seems a bit shocked, like probably relieved. I mean, I'd say is what was his quote? My backside was in the bacon slice. What was it?
You try your backside in the bacon slice.
Yeah. Like, I'd say he's just the adrenaline is going there. But yeah, vindicated a couple of big calls. Even involving Al Quinn, having Ian Hart in there with the injury issues, playing Stan as a centre half. Not that necessarily worked out, but he didn't. He kept a clean sheet, Stan. So all those bits and pieces, even the playing Duffer and Keane up front, a massive relief and a very, very smug Mick.
Very, very smug. This is what the panel had to say afterwards.
Is it, Eamon, the best day we've ever had in Lansdowne Road for Ireland?
I think it is, yeah. I think in this sense that Jack Charlton had great players at his disposal. Mick McCarthy doesn't. And what they've achieved today has been enormous vindication of him and his players. Yeah. And they reduced the Dutch to a rabble in the end. Yeah. And I think it's a great performance of spirit.
I think it was one of the great days, because we were all a little bit worried before the match with the reputation of Holland. And I think they went out and performed in a way that was heroic, really, and fully deserved it.
I was here when they qualified, when they beat Northern Ireland, and there was a carnival atmosphere, because you almost sensed you were going to qualify anyway. But today, I called Holland to win. I bet there was a lot of people out there scared that they were going to win as well and be the party poopers. But the lads were fantastic, and I'm very emotional, very happy.
Yeah, Liam, very, very emotional there. It's funny when Eamon said that, I was thinking, wasn't he going to say about this when Eamon said Jack had great players at his disposal, Mick doesn't. See, that's the thing, and people forget. We look back on because obviously the squad has got weaker and weaker over time. Back then, that Mick squad was actually deemed quite a weak squad. Now, it was, to its predecessors, was actually the weakest squad that we'd ever had going to a tournament at that stage. I know you might find that crazy, but
you had a lot of second string, or not second string, but second tier players. A lot of guys playing it wasn't the championship at the time, the old Division 1 at the time. huge amount of lads there. You wouldn't have had as many players kind of in the top. It was a top 4 then. It wasn't a top 6, Dave, wasn't it?
Big
but at
four,
the same, yeah. But at the same time, you have to look at the perspective of it. Like, you know, Shea Given, he go on to play Champions League football. Gary Kelly, Ian Hart, as I said, Champions League semi-finalist just a couple of years before that. Like Steve Staunton, vastly experienced. Richard Dunn was one of the best up-and-coming centre-halves, I suppose, in England. You'd Mark Kinsley, who was missing in that game. Matt Holland, 2 really, really good midfielders, both captains of their clubs. Duffer, one of the best up-and-coming players in Europe at the time. Robbie Keane as well, already had a really good reputation. So, you know, it
wasn't terrible.
No, it wasn't terrible. It was poor by the standards of Italian 90, Euro 88, because we some of the best players in Europe at the time. One of the best squads and teams in the world at the time.
100%.
Yeah, but I mean, I found it funny with Dunphy saying, "Yeah, we haven't got a great team." When you've got the likes of Roy Keane and Champions League players, it's a far cry from now, Dave. Far cry from now.
Yeah, it just shows you how spoiled we were. What was it? Johnny Giles said that, God, if only Jack had mixed players, and if Mick had Jack's players, like the style of football, we could have really, really played. Which is mad. And yes, some of our younger listeners, Mick McCarthy in his first, and even some of our older listeners forget this. And that's why I love doing this podcast, to remind people we played good football. Now, we didn't do it against the Dutch because we couldn't, but we did endeavour to play some really good football. And a massive critic of not Jack's era. Well, he was Jack's era, but also Mick's era was Dunphy. And here he is eating a little bit of crow.
Is it going to do something for his career, that goal, do you reckon?
Well, I hope it does. No career depends on 90 minutes, and you know, I hope it does, as Mick McCarthy says, but at club level there are other things to consider. You're there every day. It's a different situation, but he has delivered big time for us in Holland and today.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a credit to the manager, and you referred there to the atmosphere in the squad, the family feeling, the feeling of security, the feeling that you belong. All of these things feed into a player's performance at the end of the day, and that's why managers and coaches and the people around deserve credit, because they can conjure performances like that out of a player who's doing badly at club level. He can still come into this great stage today under massive pressure and take a goal like that. That doesn't happen today. That's a cumulative thing, and it's very, very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I remember actually he goes on later on that panel. I got it wrong, Bill. I was wrong. I was wrong about Mick. And that was the thing with Mick, wasn't it? It was an improvement. He was a guy that went from the game in Lithuania flipping off the photographers in the dugout in 97. And then, you know, he's 4 years later, he's a lot more polished. He's a bit more savvy. He's not taking media guys to task. He's not having rows at them. You know, if you ever watch McCarthy's Park, which is a fabulous documentary, you know, where he turns around and goes, "Oh, you know, they can ask you, but when you turn it around and down, they go, oh, you can't be saying that to us," you know, and you're like, Mick.
Love that McCarthy's Park. That's the 98. That's his first campaign, isn't it, McCarthy Park?
Yeah. Where
excellent documentary.
Superb. And when he goes into the one in Brussels, where I put my fucking foot through the coffee pot. But yeah, you know, he'd really come of age, hadn't he? And of course, we had Cyprus at home in the next game, but we beat them 4-0. Noel Quinn would beat Frank Stapleton's record, which Frank was delighted about.
He looked chuffed with that, yeah.
He was delighted. But unfortunately, we just couldn't do the business. We couldn't get the goals required, and Portugal would qualify, and we play Iran. And it's a shame Martin's not on here, because we all know what happened in the second leg against Iran, or what didn't happen. But I'm sure that'll be a podcast for another day. Martin, not Martin, you're Nick. Sorry, Martin. Sorry, Nick. Sorry, Martin. Gotta get my
not remotely offended.
Neither should you. Right. We're gonna leave it there. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much, Nick, for coming on here as a super sub. And Martin, wherever you are, tied up in a basement somewhere, probably. I'm sure we'll get more of him next week as we go to Paris and Dublin, as we have the international window coming back in. Anyway, if you want to follow us a little bit more, you can go on to Facebook. You can go to YouTube. Please go to YouTube. Give us a cheeky subscribe. It does help. We are trying to grow that channel over there. Head over to Twitter and Instagram. And of course, you can head over to the website, greenmachinepodcast.com. That's the greenmachinepodcast.com for more news and opinion. And in fact, I'm going to leave you guys with the last word, and the last word goes to Amo.
Appropriately, Eamon, the last word to you.
Well, the last word, I think, is a vindication for this manager who's had a rough time, and even this week people saying, and a vindication, I think, of the greatness of Roy Keane. Different class.
Awesome, isn't he? Different class.